Hello everyone, Yousif here from Crafting Clouds. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about batch updating and method. This is something that, you know, I get frequently asked about with the businesses that I work with. And I feel like it's something simple enough that you guys can do, and it's a very helpful, extremely useful tool. Now, what I mean by batch updating is, let's say we're on a customer, right? And you have this drop down customer type. I'm using this as an example. It could be any drop down that you want to basically apply. But essentially, it could be a custom drop down or standard. But let's just imagine that I wanted to be able to apply a customer type to all of my customers. Now, instead of having to go to each one of my customers and manually applying them one by one, right? Which would be very tedious and cumbersome. You may want to be able to do it in batch, where you're selecting, all of the customers that are sellers, all of your customers that are buyers, all of your customers that are homeowners in this example, and just clicking a single click of a button, and it automatically applied to all of those customers in one batch. Now, the reason why this scenario comes up is because oftentimes when you're building something out in Method, you are defining a new requirement or a new data point in your business that's important that you're not currently tracking in your QuickBooks that you want to have tracked in Method. Now, because of that, all of your customers in the past, since you've started using QuickBooks, which could be decades, right, don't have this data point, and you want to start tracking it. So imagine you have thousands of customers and now you want to track this new data point. You have to go into each single record and basically apply it one by one out of the box in Method, which is not the best situation to be in, because that's very tedious and it's going to take a very long time for you to do. So instead, what you could do is, in this example, again, I'm only using this as an example. You can apply this to your estimates, a custom map of yours, a custom dropdown that you want to use. But for the sake of this video, this is what I'm going with. So in here, I'm going to teach you how to build that batch functionality for you, okay? So what we're going to do is, we're on our contacts list, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go and add a section, okay? I'm going to title this section batch, okay? And then we're just going to move this section all the way to the top. Okay. I'm just going to apply some padding here as well. Let me add some padding here. Okay. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to add another section. Okay. Let me define this to 30% for now. And let me go ahead and remove padding here. Okay. And then I'm going to add a nice background color for us here. And, just make it a little bit more appealing to the eye. Okay. And let's go ahead and let's do primary, double. I'm going to say 4px actually. And let's go ahead and I'm going to add a drop down here. Okay. So that custom field, right? You could basically just take a drop down object, not a field, right? These fields are bound to the table on the screen, which is entity table. Now, your custom field, or what you're trying to reference to update onto your record, whether it's a customer, an estimate, or whatever, may not be a part of the same table, right? And even if it was, you don't need to use your field in this case. In fact, it doesn't make sense. What you want to do is, you want to go to your objects, you want to drag a drop-down object, then you want to change the base table of this drop-down to be the table of your custom field, which in my case, it was my own personal one, Crafting Clouds customer type. Okay, and I'm just going to label this customer type. And then what you want to do is, you also want to go to your column section, because right now it's only showing me my record ID. I want to go ahead and add the customer type column, so that way we can see the columns there. Okay, so we know which value to choose. And then we want to also add a button. So we're going to go here. We're going to add a button. We'll call this button update. Okay. And in fact, I also want to add a title. So I'm just going to call this batch tools. Okay, text stay on one line, title. And the reason why I'm calling it batch tools is because I anticipate in the future I'm going to be adding to this. So you can imagine, and this happens all the time with businesses I work with, they only start with one field and then they realize, oh, this was actually pretty easy. I want to also capture these other data points, or I want to do these things. You're going to organize them all into this one area if it applies. In our case, we're applying it to customers. So if you are updating, the customer with different values, you are going to organize them in one area, which is your batch tool section. Okay. And that's how I have it. So now what I want to do is I just want to look at the design. I think probably I'm going to have to do some tweaks. Yeah. So I want to do some tweaks here. First, I want to add padding, and I also want to make the button full size, and I want to change the button background color. So I'm going to say secondary. I want to make this full size. I also want to add top padding here to give a little distance between the title and the dropdown. There we go. Okay. Now in here, I also want to add bottom padding too to the entire section because you can see it's kind of crushed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to add bottom padding here. Let's do 2x bottom padding there. Let's see how that looks like. Oh no. Instead of doing that, because look, it extended the color of the section, which I don't want. So instead, I'm going to add top padding to the nav tabs. Okay, and that's because the background color of that is white. So it's going to look like it's pushed down and it gives a little bit more space. Okay, that's much better. Okay. So now, another thing I wanted to do, and I'm actually going to point this out to you right now. Okay, so we're on the contacts grid, but it's a customer value that we're updating, which means that we want to actually go to your companies grid right here. But how do we select these companies so that we can apply these customer types, right? So you can see the customer type column I've already added to the grid, okay, at the very end there. But there's no checkbox column. So to add it, we need to add a checkbox column. So let's go back, let's customize the screen. Let's go to the companies grid, okay? We're gonna go column and we're gonna say has a checkbox column, save. Okay. There we are. Now we have a checkbox column. We can go, oh no, that's the contacts grid. Now we have a checkbox column. We can do select all. We can select a few, however many we like, right? So now the last step that's missing is we need to build the logic for this update button. Because right now, if I click this, nothing happens, okay? So let's go ahead and let's customize this. And let's go behind the button and let's start with the conditional statement. Okay. The conditional statement is going to say, if the customer type dropdown record ID is greater than 0, which means if there's a customer type selected, so it's not blank, right? In fact, now that I think about it, no, I'm not going to do that. And you know why? Because maybe you made a mistake on a customer type and you want to blank some out in batch as well. Maybe some of the customer types, a group of the customers have the wrong customer type and you want to be able to blank them out, which means that you will want to have an empty customer type dropdown. That way it takes the empty value and applies it to your customer. So in fact, I don't want to do this. So let's go ahead. And this is going to allow the tool to be as flexible as possible, right? So we're just going to jump right into it and we're going to say loop through grid. Okay, we're going to choose the company's grid. This is important because, again, we're updating the company, not the contact. So we want to choose the company's grid. We're going to say only select rows that are checked. And then we're going to say loop through selected companies. Okay. And then we're going to say update field and table. Okay. And then because we're updating a value that's on the customer table, okay, we're going to go customer right here, and we're going to make the record ID of the customer, which is Method's unique ID. This is what tells Method what record to look at. We're going to make sure that it equals the record ID of the selected row in our grid. Okay, so you'll see now we have this loop section right here. We're just gonna type in record ID to filter all the other stuff out. Okay, we're underneath the loop section and we're just gonna look for the record ID value by itself, right there. Okay, so there we go. Now it's properly going to update and reference the right customer based off of what we selected on the grid. We're gonna choose customer type here, okay? And then we're gonna choose customer type as well on, now you don't wanna choose the loop value, right? Now you'll notice I also have customer type here. The reason why I create a Crafting Clouds customer type is because the customer type here is the QuickBooks customer type, and my account's not connected to QuickBooks. This is a demo account. So for you, you might actually, if you actually want to apply your customer type in batch, you'll most likely be using this field, okay? This customer type field is available in both QBO and QBD, okay? So now we're gonna reference the control though on screen. We're not referencing what's in the loop. We're not telling it to reference itself and update itself with the same value. That doesn't make sense, right? We want to change that value. So we want to reference the control on screen, that drop down. That's what the control means. So we're going to choose customer type, okay? We're going to choose the record ID value because we are also applying it. These have to match. If you're updating a record ID here, it has to be record ID here. If I choose display value here, it has to be also display value here. But I always like to update the customer, the record ID. I don't know, it's just habit. It doesn't matter which one you choose, to be quite honest with you. Personally, I just like to do record ID. Okay, so we're gonna say update customer type. And then after that, we're just gonna hit refresh. This is the very last action. We're gonna say refresh control, and we're gonna refresh the company's grid. And yes, we are gonna clear all checkboxes. We want those checkboxes that we selected to be completely refreshed, okay? We're gonna say refresh company's grid, all right? And now let's try this out. So now if I go to the company's grid, and what I want to do is, okay, I want to apply one of these three to a group of these, okay? So let's imagine for my sake, I have 5 customers here. For 3 of them, I want them to be buyers. So I'm going to click update. There you go. You see, it updated all 3 of those with buyers. For this Rennie one and this Umbra one, I want them to be homeowner, and I'm gonna hit update, and there you go. Homeowner, grid is refreshed, and you're ready to go. Now, one thing I also could have done as well is automatically clear this customer type dropdown. Now, it's entirely up to you. It's really your preference. If I just click update by itself right now, it's not gonna do anything, even with this filled out, because we haven't selected anything on the grid. What we could do is if we really wanted to be extra thorough, we could just say, okay, I also want to clear the customer type dropdown. I want to reset it, okay? So I'm going to reset the display, reset customer type dropdown on screen. That's it. All right. And that's how you create an easy batch tool in Method. And this could be applied across the system. This will save you a ton of time. You can add a bunch of other drop downs here if you'd like. You could do a bunch of other stuff with batching as well. For example, you can transfer records over from one to another through a batch tool. I've done that before with a business I'm working with. There's many other things you can do, but I think the most straightforward and easy and most value added solution that you can do yourself today is by adding batch tools for all the apps where you need to update records in batch. All right, guys, hope you guys are enjoying the holidays, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.